A reading from Exodus. But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt?" God said, "I will be with you." But Moses said to God, "If I come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." Then Moses answered, "But suppose they do not believe me or listen to me, but say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" The Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He threw the staff to the ground, and it became a snake. But Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I have never been eloquent, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Then the Lord said to him, "Who gives speech to mortals?" But Moses said, "O my Lord, please send someone else." The Lord said, "Your brother Aaron will speak for you." Together we say, in the midst of adversity, one person makes a difference.
From the book of Esther. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went through the city, crying out loudly and bitterly. When Esther's maidens and eunuchs came and informed her, the queen was greatly agitated that Haman had promised to pay the king for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai sent word to Esther to charge her to go to the king to make supplication to him and entreat him for her people. But Esther spoke, "All of the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being summoned, they are put to death. Only if the king holds out the holy scepter to someone may that person live." Mordecai replied, "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape more than other Jews. And who knows? Perhaps you have come to royalty for just such a time as this." Then Esther replied to Mordecai to gather all of the Jews and fast for 3 days. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, opposite the king's hall. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won his favor, and he held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. Together, in the midst of adversity, one person makes a difference.
A reading from the prophet Jeremiah. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, "Before I created you in the womb, I selected you. Before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet concerning the nations." I replied, "Oh, Lord God, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a boy." But the Lord said to me, "Do not say I am still a boy, for you shall go wherever I send you and speak whatever I command you. Have no fear of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord." Together we say, in the midst of adversity, one person makes a difference.
From the book of Jonah. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, "Go at once to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come before me." But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and such a mighty storm. But the Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon dry land. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you." So Jonah went out to Nineveh, and the people of Nineveh believed in God, They proclaimed a great fast, and everyone, great and small, put on sackcloth. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said that he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. We respond together. In the midst of adversity, one person makes a difference. We spend many times thinking about how do we teach about the Holocaust. Whenever I do so, usually to young adults, they first can't fathom it. Did this really happen? How could it happen? And when we read accounts of people who lived through the Holocaust, who were killed in the Holocaust, who were told that there were rumors about what was going on, people said, no, that can't be. How is it possible? So one of the ways that we have said that we can do so to teach them is to have them be witness, to go back to the places where the killings happened, where the atrocities happened, so they could get a little bit of a glimmer of what exactly happened and know that even though it is unfathomable, the unfathomable did happen. A series of students from Eastchester High School did just that this past February, and two students, Jonathan Goldman and Victoria Biancavilla, will share the reflections of their trip.
I would like to let you all know that several of my classmates and I went on a Holocaust Remembrance Tour this past February where we visited major landmarks and places associated with the Holocaust. We traveled throughout Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Austria, spending hours on a bus every day in order to gain insight on the tragedy that was the Holocaust. Now I would like to clear up a misconception about the Holocaust. The people in the countries affected by this plague did know what was going on inside of the camps. Even though it's easier to stomach that the people didn't know, they did. At Mauthausen, there was a village on top of a hill looking down at the camp and quarry where people very easily could see the things such as harsh physical labor, prisoners being thrown off cliffs to fall hundreds of feet because it was fun for the guards to watch, and the completely malnourished prisoners who were little more than walking corpses, and the worst thing of all, they could smell the burning dead bodies from the crematorium. To make matters worse, for the entire time Mauthausen was operational, only one person called to complain about what was happening. This person called to complain about the prisoners were too loud and that they needed to be silenced. This is just one monstrosity from a camp that isn't even as well known as its counterpart, Auschwitz. Auschwitz is a monster that I cannot even begin to describe. The magnitude of Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II-Birkenau is incomprehensible without being there firsthand. I'm going to focus on Auschwitz II-Birkenau because that was the true killing center and is the most recognizable and infamous landmark of the Holocaust. This is the place where over 1 million people were murdered mercilessly, especially women and children. The hardest part about being there is taking a walk 1 million people took before you to their death. At the crossroad where the train stopped to drop off its unfortunate passengers, a decision was made of life and death. Men to the right, women, children, and elderly to the left. Anyone who went to the left was walking towards their death, right to the gas chambers and crematorium with no chance of survival. The hard part, as you may imagine, was not walking down the same path that they took to see what is now a destroyed crematorium with only remnants of it surviving, but the walk back. Walking back, you realize that over 1 million people never got to make that same walk. On the walk back, as I slumped along with tears in my eyes, I kept imagining the massive amount of people walking by me about 75 years ago, walking unknowingly to their death. I was constantly imagining seeing the faces of women trying to comfort their crying babies, children running around and playing, both of them oblivious to the fact that they would be dead within the hour. Seeing all the faces of the people that I thought were walking by, I could almost swear I saw 1 million different faces on that walk back. Every last single one of them is gone. That is the hardest part. Walking down a path that no person has ever walked before and seeing all the faces of a lost generation. What makes all of this even more disturbing is that the people who are similar to outside contractors who were brought into work on the camp never alerted anybody. What's even more disturbing than that is that the major Allied leaders such as FDR and Winston Churchill knew exactly what was going on previous to 1939, yet they did nothing about this because it wasn't crucial to the war effort. It was at this point I realized the potential of a phenomenon that is known as the ripple effect. What is the ripple effect? As I sat at the bottom of the base of the cliff at Mauthausen concentration camp and stared distantly at the cold, dark, still lake that was just a few feet in front of me, I learned what the ripple effect was. I picked up a small, tiny, insignificant pebble that was next to my boot and threw it up and high into the lake. When the pebble got swallowed by the water, ripples spread out from where the pebble had disappeared into, and the ripples did not stop until the entire lake was covered in ripples. This tiny, insignificant pebble had taken the then precariously still, immense lake and put small ripples everywhere throughout it. Not one part of that lake went unaffected by that pebble. Not one molecule of water went unmoved. If an insignificant pebble the size of a penny could cause all of this change in the lake, just think of how much of a difference just one word or one action can make on the world. The ripple effect is the little thing that you do every day that you think went unnoticed, when in reality the whole world is changed by that one small action. Just think about how the actions of a few could have saved the lives of many.
No books or documentaries can amount to the feeling of stepping foot onto a concentration camp. The ugly truth is suddenly, unavoidably, right before your eyes. This bitter revelation of the horrors of mankind was overwhelmingly real to me as I traveled through ghettos, camps, and prisons in which millions of innocent people suffered and perished. Initially, anger encompassed my entire being. I was infuriated by the power of hate. I could not rationalize, I could not justify, I could not understand what happened in the Holocaust. All too often, as it was for me for many years, the Holocaust is conceived to be a distant and intangible moment in history. Yet, the very hate that we see in the prejudice and judgment tremendously prevalent in our modern day society is the same hate that culminated into the mass killing of 11 million people in the Holocaust. The power of hate is frightening, but not impossible to overcome. My anger only lessened when I came to the realization that we as human beings have the ability to surmount hate. We have the duty to remember the plagues of the past, to acknowledge the problems of today, and to act for the future. The absolute horrors of the Holocaust must never be forgotten. The lives lost must be honored and preserved. We then must stop to examine the world in which we live, determining where hate resides. And most importantly, we must take the huge breadth of emotion this introspection creates and transform it into the will to change. On my personal journey through this process, I came to realize how prevalent hatred was in so many aspects of my life, and I was encouraged to stand up and stand against. Inspired by my peers who traveled with me, no longer can I witness or overhear hateful acts or remarks and not feel the will to stop it. Together, we realize the great ability we have to not only stop the hate we see around us, but to be a positive force as well. We came to see that every person has a unique story, and we mustn't judge, mock, or ostracize anyone for their differences, for that only fuels the fire. By immersing myself into the learning of the terrifying events of the Holocaust, I have felt great pain, but moreover, have been pushed to change. This experience did not just elicit feelings of sorrow, but also unveiled the horrid power of hate as the root of many evils. Evils that could be avoided if we, the human race, could stop hating. We must continue to learn of the Holocaust, remembering all those innocent lives lost, many never having the chance to reach full potential, while striving to avoid anything similar ever happening again. To do so, we must bring an end to prejudice and judgment, and instead embrace diversity, appreciate our differences, and love what makes us human.
Notice at the back of your program is a picture inspired Jonathan's ripple effect idea, and in the hallway there's some more photos arranged by Sylvia Vigliani that the students took of their experience.